Ladies and gentlemen, the United States government has a shadow government that spies on the American people. It launches false flag terror attacks against its own citizens, starts illegal and unjust wars for resources and imperial control, and is hell-bent on destroying what's left of our constitutional republic in order to establish a one-world government in its ruins. Those of you tuning into our program for the first time, we probably quickly realize that you're not watching the mainstream news media because the truth will not be televised, at least not by any of the major television networks who are owned and controlled by the mega corporations and the military-industrial complex. You will, however, routinely get a steady dose of the truth right here on the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Darren McBreen, and it is April 6th, 2012, and here's a quick look at what we have lined up for you this evening. Tonight on the INFOWARS Nightly News. As the Obama administration launched a vendetta campaign against Sheriff Joe Arpaio, now the Department of Justice wants to install an embedded monitor in Sheriff Joe's office, and Sheriff Joe ain't having it. Then, a look at the green totalitarian movement associated with Agenda 21. Darren McBreen and John Bown investigate. Plus, good news on the fight against GMO, INFOWARS Nightly News reporter contest entries, and Dr. Laura Presley in studio with her latest campaign for Austin City Council and her crusade to remove the dangerous chemical fluoride from the nation's water supply. All that and more coming up during the next 30 minutes or so. But first, let's move right on to our top headlines. The Department of Justice attempts to install their own embedded monitor in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's office. As most of you are aware, Sheriff Joe recently launched an investigation into alleged President Obama's birth certificate with the intention of proving its authenticity and putting this whole issue to rest. But as it turns out, his team of investigators proved without a doubt that not only is Obama's birth certificate a complete fake, but in all honesty, it's a sloppy amateur forgery and amateur at best. And now it looks like that Sheriff Joe might be a target as the Obama administration, well, they're really going after him. They're preparing a lawsuit against him for racial profiling as they claim his department is illegally targeting Hispanics as possible illegal aliens. And now the DOJ is even trying to install a court-appointed embedded monitor stationed right there inside Arpaio's office. And folks, we're talking full-time. This is a duly elected official who represents, roughly 4, maybe 5 million people within the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. And, Joe flat out refused to let him put that thing in his office. He told him to get it the hell out of there. It should be interesting to see what other dirty tricks the Obama administration has in store for Arpaio, but they got their hands full because I have a feeling he's the kind of guy that, well, he doesn't get intimidated very easily. And no big surprise, the corporate media, they remain silent on this whole birther issue. But, of course, they have plenty of satire. And we're going to take a look at a little bit of that right now, as this is a clip from NBC during the Betty White birthday special.
An official birthday message from President Barack Obama.
Dear Betty, you look so fantastic and full of energy. I can't believe you're 90 years old. In fact, I don't believe it. That's why I'm writing to ask if you will be willing to produce a copy of your long-form birth certificate. Thanks, and happy birthday, no matter how old you are.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party,
And I want to thank one of our listeners for giving us a heads up on that clip. We had no idea it existed until somebody phoned in the Alex Jones show today and told us all about it. So it's an amazing clip. We thank you. Our next story, paralysis cases spike in wake of Bill Gates' polio vaccination effort in India. Expert medical pediatricians in India have criticized the World Health Organization and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for their promise of polio eradication without noting the devastating side effects its vaccinations could and do inflict. Numerous problems have surfaced from what doctors in Delhi have termed an unethical advocacy that has spanned more than a decade. Now, there are literally, I think there was something like 47,000 cases of non-polio paralysis reported in 2011. Just happened to be the same year that India was declared polio-free. Aaron Dykes goes into more detail in an article posted on our website where he compares the unethical partnership between the WHO and private entities with the corporation that we saw back during the H1N1 scare. And, this is a deliberate campaign to create panic and false disaster. The article is posted by Aaron on INFOWARS.com. And now, some good news in the fight against GMO, as Poland announces a complete ban on Monsanto's genetically modified maize. In addition to being linked to a number of health problems, the pollen originating from this particular GM strain is called MON H10, what may actually be devastating the dwindling bee population as well. So more and more countries, at least outside the United States anyway, are standing up against Monsanto, possibly the most corrupt and evil corporation ever. Hungary and India, for example, have recently slammed Monsanto with biopiracy charges. So certainly some good news on that front. Let's hope that that carries over to the United States. All right, looking forward to this one. We have a clip that was sent to us by none other than Alex Jones, where he illustrates how the system attempts to control us with simple diversionary tactics. He's titled this piece, How Media Distractions Work. French Bulldog investigates.
Who is that? Who is that? Is that Sparky, who just got a little piece of turkey? Ladies and gentlemen, here's what the mainstream media does with WMDs in Iraq and the Trayvon Martin story. All of it. It gets us chasing our tails. That is what it does. Over and over and over again. Meanwhile, the New World Order just sits back, manipulating humanity with a light show. That's basically the Matrix. And that's how this New World Order system operates. So my question to you is, are we sophisticated enough to learn about these different techniques that are used to control us and play us off against each other? Do we see what Madison Avenue is doing? Do we see the messages that are in the sitcoms and dramas and in the culture that are designed to make us a bunch of servile jellyfish so that the establishment can control human destiny? And by the way, the establishment is not taking humans in a very nice direction, are they? No, because they themselves are drinking the Kool-Aid. Look at this little French bulldog. He sees the laser. He's about 4 months old. And he, of course, is part terrier. That's what Frenchies are. And it's a ratter. They love to chase rats. Back in the castles or houses, they would have these instead of cats to get the mice. And so he's having fun. But the point is that the globalists give us football, NFL, for our tribal, male bonding, to think of that as our tribes and what we fight for, not for liberty, not for freedom. And there's just so many other examples of how there's these empty things that aren't really real the system uses to distract us. And while we're looking down with blinders on, the real world is going on all around us. Sparky, come here. I'm Alex Jones reporting for INFOWARS.com, getting people to think outside the box and realize you don't have to believe what I believe. Just start thinking for yourself, because there is more to reality. There are different agendas out there.
All right, and now we're going to take you to a local piece that was inspired by a man whose troubles began when he decided to clear some trees and brush infested with rats and snakes in his very own backyard. Apparently, he was unaware of the totalitarian intent that was lurking on the other side. The city of Austin, Texas has installed motion-detecting surveillance cameras along the property lines of people's backyards in western Travis County.
There ought to be a way eventually where those cameras can be oriented away from the homes. If they want to watch for any movement or any trespass out there, they have a right to do that.
And if the surveillance cameras weren't intrusive enough, the city has also installed these prison-style fences along the property lines.
They put this prison fence up and have cameras pointed at you, and only you. In fact, one home just a couple down cleared all the cedar trees, planted grass, and mows the area, trespassing regularly out there to keep that area mowed. It doesn't make it, and yet they didn't put a fence up there. They didn't put any cameras there.
These unfortunate residents are neighbors to an encroaching vacuum of government land grabbing, all tied to the precautionary principle of the UN's Agenda 21.
I was the county judge of Travis County when the Balcones Canyonlands Conservation Plan and the permit under the Endangered Species Act was applied for. This wasn't long after I took office in 1987. It was announced that the territory and nesting areas for the golden cheek warbler and the black-capped vireo covered a huge area of western Travis County. And in essence, what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife said was that to enforce the Endangered Species Act, that there could be no tree clearing, there could be no development activities, and anything that might cause noise during the breeding season, nesting season. It shut down any development in the western part of the county. A lot of public money, millions of dollars of public money that went into buying the preserves area from the landowners. The Nature Conservancy and others got private money in there and helped leverage purchases. Some property owners just sold conservation rights. They were able to stay there. They don't develop it, but they got paid to conserve their area. If they don't do a good job of managing the preserves and protecting them from fire, every bit of the money that was invested in public and private funds for these preserve systems is wasted. I don't think our elected officials are paying much attention to this. And instead, they're overreacting with this kind of bull, hurting adjacent homeowners for doing things that frankly should have been done by the government itself. They should have cleared those trees away from the neighborhoods and done a better job of managing the preserves so they help the species. So we got the worst of both worlds going on right now. But if you're considering buying a home next door and you see there's cameras out there spying on the backyard and this ugly fence next door, you're not as interested in buying that home next door.
The precautionary principle states that if an action or policy has a suspected risk of causing harm to the public or to the environment, in the absence of scientific consensus that the action or policy is harmful, the burden of proof that is not harmful falls on those taking